Hey everyone, Nick Yuskevich here with Daily Fantasy Winners. We've got the next edition of Tee to Green here for you, and it's for the John Deere Classic this week. It is a tournament that is in the Quad Cities. For whatever reason, if you don't know where the Quad Cities are, it's 4 cities, obviously. 2 on the Iowa side and 2 on the Illinois side. The Mississippi River kind of divides them, and so it's like kind of like the Quad Cities area, if you will. This tournament's in Moline, Illinois specifically, or actually it's technically Silvis, which isn't part of the Quad Cities, but yeah, it's in the Quad Cities area. So anyways, that's where the tournament is. Going to be really hot this weekend in the area. It's only about a couple hours away from where I grew up, actually. And so this is a golf course I have played before, and this is definitely one of the easiest courses on the PGA Tour. And not that I've played like a ton of PGA Tour courses, but I've played a few of them, and I will say, like, having played this course, it definitely makes sense that this is the easiest course. It's like, I mean, the field obviously is one of the weakest on the PGA Tour, and you can see that obviously by looking at the roster sheet. But in terms of scoring average, it's tied for the third easiest since 2014. Like, the average winning score here is like 21 under par or something like that over the last few years. It's really easy. When I played here, I think I played here back in, I think it was like 2014, if I remember right, that summer. And I played from it wasn't that you couldn't play from where the pros play because some of those tee boxes weren't open, but we played from the tips like that were available to the public, which honestly isn't even much of a difference on like half of the holes, but there was like a decent difference on some other holes. So I don't remember what the exact yardage was, but anyways, I shot a 75 with 35 putts. I just putted absolutely horribly that day, and it wasn't because the greens were difficult. It was just because we had played a twilight rate. The greens were really slow and bumpy, and it was just because of all the public play. It wasn't like the greenskeepers did a terrible job or anything. It was just a ton of public play. It was twilight, that type of thing. And so I putted horribly, and I also just, like, you couldn't get a true roll a lot of the time. But so that kind of gives you an idea. And for my skill level, for what it was at the time, like, I was probably playing I was like a 4 handicap if I had to guess. Maybe it was slightly better than that, but yeah, that's what I pretty much was, like a 4. And I shot 75 from the farthest back we could play from, at least from the public. It was like 7,000 yards, and I think on the PGA Tour it plays like just under 7,200. So that kind of gives you an idea that this is a really easy course. And so yeah, a lot of birdies, definitely some eagles. It's like one of the fewest on tour when it comes to bogeys, double bogeys, all that type of stuff. So from a statistical standpoint, there really isn't a ton that shows up here. Strokes gained putting does show up here just because this is a relatively easy course and the greens are pretty easy. I've played on greens and plenty of other courses that are more difficult than these. They're not Muni greens by any means of imagination, but by PGA Tour standards, it is definitely the easier side. So strokes gained putting does show up here some, and strokes gained approaching the green definitely shows up here, as it always does, and it does show up here. And so nothing really as far as strokes gained off the tee. And length does not matter here at all whatsoever. So I'll throw those in there, and we will take a look at the top players. And this is a week where this is kind of rare, but I actually really like everybody that's like in the 10K or above. It's going to be to different extents, but this is it's a weak field. Believe it or not, it's actually even a slightly stronger field than it has been, I think, in some years past. As crazy as that sounds, maybe it's about the same, but I think it's actually a little bit better. And so I do think the guys above 10K are worth playing. You got to pick one of them, or at least one of them, if not 2 of them, probably here. And so I'll just start with Francesco Molinari. He is my favorite of the 5. It's not just because he won. If you've pretty much every week in the forum, if he is playing, I have mentioned you should be playing him, unless I talk about him on the videos, and then I say, yeah, I usually like him quite a bit. I can tell you Danny and Max really like him as well. We're all very pro Molinari, and we're starting to see that come back to life. And one of the big reasons why we've been pro Molinari, obviously, is that this strokes gained putting regression number here at a positive 0.360 that we are expecting still, like, we're getting some payback on that, and we're actually not even getting that much paid back on it. His tee to green game has just been so good, and his putter finally caught fire there for a little bit at Tiger's tournament, where he just won at the National. So for a place like the John Deere, though, Molinari in this field is the best tee to green, Molinari is awesome, everything like that. And I think it's worth just paying 11,600, and like that's not much of a difference between him and DeChambeau and Zach Johnson and those guys. So I just think it's a no-brainer, and you don't really need to think about it. Cash, GPPs, all that's fine for Molinari. I have nothing against DeChambeau though either. It's just the strokes gained putting regression number doesn't quite show up, and as well. And we don't even have that much data on DeChambeau, obviously, because he's younger, and so you see all these zeros right here. We don't have the putting numbers as you would expect. And so, we're just predicting DeChambeau to be average right now when we still need to gather more data on him. And, Bryson's always tweaking things. So, DeChambeau could probably go through bigger swings, maybe more than the average person, potentially. And so, nothing against Bryson. I would just rather play Molinari than DeChambeau. So that's just, but nothing against, Bryson. If you're doing a bunch of GPPs for whatever reason and you want to play some, and you're wondering about DeChambeau, I've got nothing against him. That's all good in my book. Zach Johnson. So, this is kind of, some people will probably call it the Zach Johnson Invitational because Zach Johnson from Eastern Iowa always has his like big charity like golf tournament in the Cedar Rapids area, which is pretty close to the Quad Cities, just like an hour and a half away. But and then like a lot of guys will come in for that who aren't even playing in the John Deere, and he'll have that event. But then they go over to the John Deere as well. Some of them do. And then they play in that event. And so, this is like a very pro Zach Johnson crowd. Zach has done very well at this tournament historically. At the same time, though, like I think that's nothing like from a course that's nothing from like a course knowledge standpoint. Like this isn't a golf course where you need to have a ton of course, like just history on to like do all this. Isn't like anything potentially like Augusta National where you need to like know where to land the ball on your approach shots and know how to feed the ball into certain pin locations. Like what you see is what you get here. It's pretty darn straightforward. And Zach's done really well here. Maybe there's a little bit of a pro crowd Zach Johnson advantage here that helps him, but for the most part, why Zach does well here historically is just that this field sucks like usually every year, and he is one of the best players in the field every single year. So it's like, he should be doing really well here. It's pretty much that simple. And so, and this isn't a course that promotes length, and Zach's obviously one of the shorter hitters on tour, and that helps as well. So I have nothing against Zach Johnson. I would just say that I would still rather play Molinari at 11.6K. Either for DraftKings FanDuel, doesn't matter. I would rather play Molinari over Zach Johnson. And I've got nothing against Zach as well. Zach will probably be... Zach's, it's actually kind of fun. I'm not sure what Zach's ownership is going to be. I'm a little unsure because everybody knows this is Zach's tournament does really well here. So I would think that he would be owned quite a bit as a result of that. And, his last two finishes are tied for 19th at the Travelers, tied for 12th at the U.S. Open, which is fine. But that's not even like amazing form, and like some of the other guys around him are actually in arguably better form than Zach. So I don't know if because there's enough more top options in this field in comparison to maybe past John Deere Classics like that. I do think that I don't think Zach's ownership is going to be too high, so I don't think you're going to have to own a ton of them to over own him. So take what you want from that. I would still probably play Molinari over Zach, but Zach is a fine option like that. He'll be owned decently, but I don't think it'll be crazy through the roof. And I don't think any of these guys like 10K or above 10K are going to be crazy highly owned. Even 9K, I just don't see it happening. And you won't have to worry about ownership too much from there. Joaquin Niemann. So, we still don't have stats on him, but which was weird because it's like Niemann's clearly played enough events to qualify for the PGA Tour stats. So it's really, confusing, at least. And I don't know the specifics behind it, but I know if you look up Niemann, like if you, look him up on the PGAtour.com thing, like he's been a member of like the web.com tour. And I think he just got like his tour card relatively recently by, qualifying by some means. And I'm not even 100% sure on that. But the bottom line is Niemann actually this isn't like a technical glitch on our part. He actually just, for whatever reason, doesn't qualify for the PGA Tour stats yet to be ranked, yet he's played enough events, and I don't know why. But what I will do, though, is I will show you. These are Niemann's strokes gained statistics here just so far this year, and you can see how damn good they are. I mean, it's crazy. Strokes gained off the tee, really good. Strokes gained approaching the green, outstanding. He's been poor around the green, which is usually kind of more of a higher variance stat anyways, especially for younger players. And then he's been above average putting, but not like super hot that you're questioning like, maybe something's really weird. So, and then so obviously the tee to green is extremely good, and the strokes gained total is really good. So, I mean, again, so we have 26 measured rounds here, and so that's 4 times 6 is 24. It's 6.5, PGA Tour events, essentially. And so that's not like the biggest sample size, but it's not like Neiman is doing something incredibly hot with the putter and being average tee to green. So that's a really good sign, I think. And, Neiman's got a ton of talent, I think. I mean, the dude's only 19, I think, if I remember right. This guy's just got an insane amount of talent. So with that being said, I would say that Neiman is my second favorite player, 10K and above. You might say he's slightly higher variance because he's 19 and he has a few more missed cuts than some of the guys around him. So maybe you're thinking more along the GPP option. You don't want to stack Molinari and Neiman in a cash lineup that forces you into 4 lower 7K or upper 6K options. Maybe you don't want to do that, but I do think Neiman is the second best option actually here, at least from GPPs of the guys that are 10K and above, and definitely like him. I mean, this guy's talent's just, it really does seem like he's crazy good. So. And then the last guy, we'll touch on Ryan Moore. It's funny, like in a normal John Deere Classic, I would say I'm very pro Ryan Moore, just because usually there's always a couple guys around here that that I wouldn't like around 10K or just wouldn't like as much. And I mean, look, Ryan Moore is showing a positive .220 on the strokes gained putting regression tool, and we have a good amount of data on Ryan Moore. We predict him to be just slightly above average, which is probably pretty reasonable based upon his history. And his tee to green game's been very good, and his form has been decent. But honestly, it's just one of those things where I just look at the guys above him and say, well, there really isn't that big of a price difference that I'd rather play Neiman over Moore. He's got better upside. So yeah, it's just one of the things. I have nothing against Moore, but given the guys around him, I like him less than Neiman. I probably like him as much as Zach, given factoring in the $1,000 difference there, because I do think Zach's a little bit better just straight up than Moore for this tournament. But yeah, as far as the price difference, it probably comes out to being about a wash there with Zach Johnson for me. So yeah, I know this isn't like I don't have any super strong takes here for the guys above 10K, but it's just kind of how it worked out this week. And you can see the odds per dollar here, by the way. I'll just scroll down here quick as we wrap this up. Odds per dollar wise, both sites did a pretty good job this week. A couple guys maybe stand out a little bit as far as the odds per dollar goes, but for the most part, this is pretty good. And I know it kind of helps that this is a really weak field, and so a bunch of these guys down here are going to be like super long shots and all that. But so that probably helps DraftKings and FanDuel be more in line. But for the most part, though, they did a better job this week, which is fine to see. But I'm sure they will screw it up for the Open when they come out with their salaries. Like, they tend to get really screwy at the majors for whatever reason. But anyways, that's it for this video. I'll throw you guys a few plays that I like in particular for the cheaper ranges on the forum as per usual. And then we got the British Open next week, so good times ahead. All right, anyways, thanks for watching. I'm at Nick Yuskevich on Twitter, Daily Fantasy Winners on Twitter at DFantasyWinners, and thanks as always for the support on the YouTube channel. All right, good luck, everybody.